Justin Walker, a black entrepreneur, fell from respected leader to victim in days, targeted by a racist judge. Public outcry changed nothing, but when the judge was arrested for corruption, Justin knew his fight had just begun. At the heart of a big city's legal system, a high-profile case was unfolding, drawing attention from influential media and the public alike. The main defendant, Justin Walker, a 30-year-old black entrepreneur with a reputation for ambition who had built his business from the ground up, symbolized a new generation determined to change stereotypes and achieve success against all odds. Justin was charged with a serious financial crime, tax fraud. His lawyer argued that the charges resulted from accounting errors due to mismanagement within the bookkeeping department. However, presiding over the case was Judge James Collins, a strict and conservative figure known for his uncompromising stance on similar cases. Collins didn't hide his bias. From the first glance at Justin, his face contorted with disdain, and his words were laced with barely hidden sarcasm and arrogance. At each session, Collins meticulously undermined the defense's arguments. Every time Justin or his lawyer tried to clarify the details of the case, the judge interrupted with blunt, biting remarks. For example, when Justin's lawyer presented evidence of a bookkeeping error, Collins sneered, saying, "An error or a clever attempt to cover up violations? I won't let you fool us in this courtroom." His words dripped with contempt, and his expressions only reinforced the sense of scorn and mistrust. Justin's friends and relatives in the courtroom were stunned. They watched with concern as the judge openly displayed his bias. Every glance, every movement seemed calculated to put Justin in his place. Some friends wanted to voice their anger, but Justin's lawyer warned them that any careless remark could harm the case. Justin's family understood that their loved one's fate was in the hands of a biased judge, and they feared any interference could worsen an already challenging situation. Despite these attacks, Justin stood his ground. He knew that any emotional outburst could be used against him. Maintaining his composure, he listened quietly to the judge's scornful words, responded confidently to questions, and kept his calm even when directly humiliated. Justin was determined not to give up. His case was not just about clearing his name, but also proving that he deserved respect, regardless of stereotypes and biased treatment. A few days into the trial, Justin Walker's case began to draw public attention. His community stirred. Many knew of his charitable work and the relentless effort that lifted him from a disadvantaged neighborhood to success. People felt that Justin was being unfairly targeted and wanted to support him through this ordeal. Justin's close friends decided to organize protests. They gathered at the city's central square, holding signs reading, "Justice for Justin. Stop judicial tyranny. Inequality before the law." More people joined each day, openly expressing their disapproval of the judge's bias. The protest began to receive coverage on local news channels, and journalists began investigating Judge Collins's background, uncovering evidence of his biased treatment of black people and other minorities in his past cases. Soon, media outlets started publishing articles exposing his conservative views and tendency toward bias. News reports and social media featured residents expressing concern over the unfair trial, calling for objectivity and fairness. Justin's case became a symbol of the fight for equality, and people started to see him as a hero standing up to a judicial system that too often proved unjust. This wave of support inspired Justin. He saw that his fight extended beyond just one case and had become something larger. Every social media post, every interview or news segment discussing his situation gave him new strength. He realized that he now bore responsibility not only for his future, but also for the idea of justice and equality for all. Justin's determination grew, and he looked forward to the upcoming days in court with renewed resolve. Judge Collins, on the other hand, grew increasingly irritated. At first, he hoped all this public attention would be a temporary flare-up, but as the protests and publications continued, his irritation turned to anger. He saw this as a personal insult, feeling that his authority and power were being questioned. Instead of distancing himself and reviewing the case objectively, Collins became even harsher and more aggressive toward Justin and his lawyer. In court, the judge imposed almost impossible conditions on the defense, demanding additional evidence that would require unreasonable effort and time, and each time emphasizing that any delay would count against the defendant. Collins did everything he could to wear Justin and his team down, hoping they'd make a mistake under pressure. He wielded his authority in every way possible to complicate the process, hoping this battle would break Justin's resolve and force him to abandon the fight. Yet, despite the mounting pressure, Justin stood firm, knowing that now he had the strength of society and its support behind him. Only a month had passed since Justin Walker's grueling case concluded, leaving an indelible mark on his life and the lives of his loved ones. But to the city's surprise, the high-profile trial took an unexpected turn when Judge Collins' name resurfaced in a very different light. It turned out that the same judge who had harshly and unfairly judged Justin was now under close scrutiny by law enforcement. The media began reporting initial details. For the past several years, Judge Collins had been involved in corruption schemes. He was accused of issuing favorable rulings for bribes and covering up certain cases. However, proof had been hard to obtain because Collins was extraordinarily cautious and carefully concealed his tracks. Federal agents who had long been observing the judge decided to employ a ruse, sending in an undercover agent posing as a wealthy businessman who supposedly needed several cases resolved in his favor. Confident in his untouchability, Collins relaxed, becoming less cautious and assuming the agent was just another paying client. Over months, the agent collected evidence of his criminal activities, including recorded conversations and evidence of bribes. But the tipping point that pushed the case to its conclusion was the judge's behavior in Justin Walker's case. When federal agents realized Collins was not just a corrupt judge, but also an openly biased racist, they began preparing for his arrest. Justin's case became the final link in a chain of his violations, and the investigation swiftly approached its end. For many, this served as a symbol that injustice always surfaces, and Justin, as a victim of prejudice, had unwittingly helped expose the truth. Justin and his attorneys learned about the exposure of the corruption schemes that morning, as news of Judge Collins' arrest dominated the media. Justin, recalling the humiliation and unjust rulings, could hardly believe that justice had finally prevailed and that the biased judge would no longer deliver unfair judgments. On the appointed day, Justin returned to the same courtroom where he had recently endured a harsh trial. Now, he watched as Collins, shackled and humbled, was led out under camera flashes and the gazes of onlookers, his weak protest stifled and his humiliated face hidden. Surrounded by agents, stripped of his former power and arrogance, Collins appeared utterly broken. It was as if the heavy weight of his own crimes, so carefully concealed over the years, had finally come crashing down on him. For Justin, this was not only a moment of moral triumph, but also a long-awaited relief. He saw that the judge who had tried to break him had himself fallen victim to the same justice system he once controlled. After months of intense trials and challenges, Justin finally returned to his everyday life, now with a completely new understanding of what justice is and the price it can sometimes demand. Though his business needed his return, Justin felt he couldn't simply close his eyes to what he had experienced. His fight had become an example for those who felt the weight of discrimination and bias, and now he saw it as his duty to support others. With each passing day, he realized that his personal victory was not just about clearing his name, but a chance for meaningful change. Justin began giving speeches at city universities, sharing his story on social media and at public gatherings. His simple yet profound story of overcoming bias and fighting for justice captured increasing attention. People saw in him not just a victim, but a strong individual who could overcome injustice and become a voice for those without one. Justin decided to start a public campaign called The Right to Justice, an organization aimed at combating systemic discrimination in the judiciary. His team collected data on similar cases, advised victims of injustice, and partnered with lawyers ready to represent people like himself pro bono. He organized rallies and marches advocating for equal justice, striving to make the legal system more transparent and fair for everyone. The community supported him every step of the way. People who had recently protested in his favor now joined his events, understanding that the fight for justice went far beyond one case. Justin attracted prominent lawyers and activists, which strengthened his position and boosted public support even more. His story began to attract national attention, and he spoke at major forums, addressing issues of discrimination in the judicial system. The media covered his campaign, calling Justin a man who had transformed from a victim to a fighter for truth. His example inspired others who had also experienced bias and discrimination to fight for their rights. People began to see him as a symbol of change, a reminder that even one person can awaken society and impact a system meant to protect, not oppress. Justin understood that a long road lay ahead and that his campaign was only the beginning of a larger movement. But he was determined to do everything possible to ensure his fight would not be in vain. He became a symbol of hope for many who had previously felt helpless in the face of the system. His example reminded people that the fight for justice is not always a path to immediate victory, but every step in that direction makes the world a bit better and fairer for all. Thus, Justin's story became not only a personal victory, but also a story of the entire community that had come to understand the power of unity and the determination to fight for their rights.